Welcome to RAYA'S podcast. I'm here with Monica Westphal, Chief Operating Officer at RAYA'S. Good morning and welcome. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good, Moti. Thank you.
Okay. Well, today's podcast, the topic for today's podcast will be obstacles families face with place. Let me rephrase that. Obstacles families face with placement in a brand new community. So, Monica, since we did open a brand new community in San Clemente, I prepared a few questions, and hopefully these questions will be able to educate our listeners or guests. So here's one important one, and that is, what are the challenges families are faced placing a loved one in a brand new community?
You know, Moti, there's a list of them. And so our community's been open for 4 or 5 months now. And we've had quite a bit of families come through. And there's a broad, list of questions that they'll ask. And they can be related to anywhere from the food or caregivers or the rooms or even the simple thing of not having enough residents.
So how do you ensure that this because it's a new building and the staffings are new, the staff are new, how do you ensure that the staff get the properly training and the direction how to care for staff, whether it's a nurse or cook or LVN or CNA or whoever it may be?
Yeah, so that's a great question because a lot of families are asking that. So when we first started started going through orientation with some of our new staff members, even way before getting any residents. All of our caregivers, staff, any department went through a full 2 week of training, and that we covered everything from the resident rights to how to report abuse, how to deal with difficult and challenging behaviors. How do you talk to new families? How do you talk to new residents? So that was at the beginning. How do we do it now? It still continues. So we go through the process of interviewing the staff. If they're a good fit for the community, then we offer them, the position. We send them off to fingerprints. They have to be background checked. They have to go to get a physical to ensure that they're well enough to be able to care for our residents. Once all that is back, then we bring them into the community and we start orientation. Everybody still goes through the 2 weeks of orientation. But let me remind our families, not only did we do that at the beginning and we continue to do that, but it's a continual training that we put our staff through. So on a weekly basis or maybe bi-weekly basis, we cover a topic. It could be that even I'm going in and covering a topic about how do we deal with a challenging behavior? How do we redirect? Because we want to make sure that our staff is continuously trained. Just because they were hired and we brought them aboard and we put them in their department doesn't mean that they don't need any further training.
So that means that every associate that works at RAYA'S gets their initial training, and then they get the ongoing training.
That is correct.
Yeah, and then is this also part of what we do, or is it part of the requirement that licensing requires, or there is something that licensing requires, but we go above and beyond what licensing requires? Yeah. What's our protocol on this?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So yes, so licensing requires that we do 20 hours annually for continual education.
Is there specific?
There's different topics. Okay. Yes, so some of them could be related to dementia, some of them could be related to hygiene and et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But we go above and beyond. So we continue the training. So we don't just do 20 hours. We'll look for any topic that we can. Again, I'm going in a couple of weeks and doing a refresher on how do we deal with challenging behaviors. As you get new residents into the community, not everybody knows how to deal with the difference of the residents in the memory care. So another training to all staff, not just the staff in the memory unit.
So in a new community, is there like any difference between a community that has just opened versus a community that is at capacity in terms of activities and engagement?
Yeah, there's a big difference. So when you first open a community versus having one that's already established, your established community already has a set of programs. You already have the residents that are kind of telling you what they like and what they don't like. And you base your program activity on that. In a new community, you kind of don't know. So you kind of start with a fresh slate. And you put activities, on an activity calendar, and then you start to approach the residents and say, would you like this? And then you take a tally of whether or not it's well attended, it's not well attended. And so then you start to go through your activity program based on what the residents like and what they don't like. So basically it's a learning as you go through with the residents as to what they like to do.
So is there like some sort of a meeting between the engagement coordinator and the residents that reside in the community as to what they like and what they don't like?
Yes. So licensing requires that we do what's called a resident council meeting. However, the residents have to request to want to do that. But what we have done, even though the community's only been open 4 months, is we started the resident council meetings right from the get-go. Okay. So what we have been able to do is, as residents moved in, we've been able to sit them down and say, okay, these are the activities that are on the calendar. What are some of the things that you guys want to see happen or what you want to do so that we can plug them into the calendar? So that has actually helped us get more feedback and get it quicker from the residents instead of them voicing that they don't like something.
How often this resident council meeting is held?
Once a month.
It's monthly?
Once a month, yeah.
Okay. So as I understand, this resident council meeting, also part of the resident council meeting, and I don't know if it's done in the same resident council meeting or a separate one, but same applies to the food or the culinary part of it, right? They meet with the chef.
Yeah, so good point. And in here we can address, some of the families will come in and say, well, how do you ensure that the food tastes good? My mother lives, or my father is really, lives on good quality food. Mm-hmm. Or they'll come, new families will ask the question of, how do you follow a specific diet? My mom can't be on no salt, low sodium, or maybe a diabetic diet. So let's go back to touching on the food council. We do have food council meeting, and yes, the chef comes in, and that's also once a month. So is that the same meeting?
Nope. A separate meeting?
Separate meeting on a different day.
Okay.
So we announce it and say we're having a food council meeting, and in that meeting, the residents can voice, we don't like this on the menu, we like this. And with that meeting, we waited at least a month or a month and a half because we wanted to try out the menu. So after we did have the first food council meeting, the chef knew, and he went back and adjusted the menu. So it's helpful for us to know if the residents are liking the food or they're not liking the food, because we can adjust the menu.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, that's very important. I mean, we've got to make sure, because food is a big item.
Very big. And again, families are coming through saying, well, can you guys handle, the different diets? And another thing that I'm seeing is, because the community is brand new and it's, a beautiful community, it kind of resembles a hotel. Or people will come through and say, you can't possibly take care of my loved one. And so if I go back and educate them and say, tell me some of the needs that your loved one has, and they'll say, well, they need a special diet, or they need a renal diet, or they need a diabetic diet. The best part about it is our chef knows exactly what to do, how to talk to them. Again, more training. We train on all of this, and it's just educating the family that we can take care of the special diets in the community.
Great. So, well, that's great to know, and actually I think it's going to be very informative, because the community, since we do not have a sign in front yet, a lot of people think it's a hotel, and hopefully our monument sign will come up sometimes in February, will be up and standing, so people will have a better idea as to what this building is all about.
Yeah.
But with that, I know that some families and some residents claim that some of the rooms are small. And what do you do about it? What do you have to say about it?
So good question. Thank you for asking. So yes, families will come through, and they'll come through with their loved one, and the mom or dad might say, this room is way too small. I can't have this room. I have a lot more space. My house is, 3,000 square feet, and I've been living in it for 30 years. How do you want me to live in a room that's only 200 square feet? So the reason that our rooms are so small, and we put the community...
I think it's a little bigger than 200 square feet.
Just using an approximation. So the reason we put, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the reason we put the community together with the rooms like this, and we did 4 living living
Corridors.
corridors. So
Not quarters, yeah.
So basically, out of every room, there's a full dining room with a living room, and they can eat there. And there's a balcony on every floor. So the concept behind why we did this was for them to have their room to sleep in, to rest in, but mainly spend most of their time outside of those rooms. We did not put this community together for them to spend and isolate themselves. So we all saw. Obviously, very important recently through COVID, a lot of residents were very lonely and isolated in their rooms because they couldn't do a whole lot. So our concept and goal is that when a resident moves in, they acclimate immediately or as quickly as they can to other residents, to the staff, by doing the activities or sitting out in the main living room area, going to the dining room, going to the first floor, sitting out in the balcony, going to the rooftop, which is beautiful, and enjoying the community. One of the bigger things I always tell families, or I'll tell the potential resident, is the whole community is your home. It's not just that one bedroom.
Yeah. So it's important to socialize, interact, and because a lot of residents or elderly, they do suffer from depression, and I think by being engaged with other, I think it helps with it.
Yes, and we have found obviously in the last 4 months that we've had some residents move in, is they'll come through and they'll say, I don't really have anybody, but it's really, again, this is where you get the activity department and you start implementing these meetings, which is really important, to have them socialize with other residents and then the staff. And then all of a sudden it is their home. They're sitting in the living room. They're sitting in the dining room.
Yeah, I think there's an adjustment curve that once they move in and they realize that there's more to it than just your room. I think they realize and they recognize the fact that a ginormous room is not what's going to make you well and everything. No. I think it's the whole package. Right. And I think all of our residents who are there now, and the alert ones in assisted living area, they're doing very well. They interact, they go on outings with our engagement, and I think they're doing quite well, and they're very happy.
Yes, and I do, I've had several family members come through and residents who will occupy both of the rooms, and for different reasons. Everybody has a different reason why they want either just one room or they want two. The bottom line is all of the staff is there, the care is there, the nursing team is there, and so they're getting all of the attention and more that they need in this big, beautiful community. So I also get asked the question a lot is, you don't have enough residents, right? Because it's a new community. So how is my mom going to feel? What am I going to do? So again, one of those, how to answer the question for that family is, we're going to center your mom's admission on her needs, her daily needs. Why does your mom need to be here? And then once mom or dad gets into the community, it's really ensuring that they're socializing and not just spending all their time in their room. Because in assisted living, it's easy, very easy for a resident to just isolate and stay in their room.
Especially in the larger communities where there's 100, 120 beds, it's really easy to fall through the cracks. With us, we only have 40 rooms in this building, and it's very boutique, and we really know exactly what people are doing. Our system determines how long a resident stays or spends time in a room, and it actually alerts us if it's more than X amount, whatever we trigger the alert to notify us. But I think, if you ask me, I think it's better. Like I said, I think it's better to be on the radar at all times by living in a smaller community, because then we know exactly how you're doing, or why are you spending too much time in the room? Are you being engaged with other residents and staff? So I think it's too big. I don't think it's healthy. Too small. I don't think it's healthy. But I think the middle it's just the perfect kind of setup.
Another question, that's another great question that's asked through families is, they'll say, Monica, what's your opinion on a small community versus larger community? And I always go back to the family and say, your loved one better than we do. these are the pros with having a smaller community. These are the cons. And so for some residents, it's great to be in a smaller, intimate setting. And for some residents, they just need that larger space. So it's really going to be based on everybody's individual needs. Yeah, everybody's individual needs. So if for some residents, it's great to have a smaller environment. For some, it's not. And I'm glad that you touched on the Care Predict, because that has been a really good key or a tool that has been very, very helpful in the community, to the point where we even had markers put up on the rooftop so we can identify that there's residents up on the rooftop. So that has been very, very useful, that device.
So with that said, now the families are looking, how does the family member knows, or what should trigger an alert to a family member or responsible party? When is it time to place a loved one in a community rather than living at home?
Another great question. So, in all my years of doing this, I've been a social worker for years, 25 plus years. And this question is a very common question. And so my answer to the family is, the minute that you start to recognize that your mom or dad or loved one, whoever it is that you're looking after, you're starting to need to assist them with more and more things on a daily pattern. For instance, mom's calling saying, I can't cook for myself anymore. I can't go to the grocery store. I can't sleep at night, and I'm having a hard time getting up at night. When the family starts to see those things, those are probably the biggest signs.
Yeah, it's more like safety and also isolation.
100%.
That really can take a quick turn to the decline direction, where and a lot of families or maybe even residents will at first say, no, I want to stay at home. But then once they come, it's like little kids, once they come and they realize, oh, wow, I don't like it at first, but then they realize there's so much to do. I think they realize it's like an adjustment curve.
It definitely is, and all it takes is a good 2 weeks of a resident being with us to be able to acknowledge that their loved one needed the care. So far, we've had great success at the community. We've had residents who've moved in, and within 2-3 weeks, the resident loves the community. The families love the community. Definitely creating and changing lives at this community. We've only been open for 4 months, 5 months, I would say, and we have definitely had great success, and we continue to. And I look forward to being able to help many more families. But we're changing lives day by day.
That's great. Well, that's the mission, and I know you're going to be doing very soon a podcast with as a success story podcast. Yes. And I think that'll be very exciting. I'm actually looking forward to listen to that one, since I'm not going to be present. But that's great, good information. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from this. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
One quick thing. Again, the last I want to mention is the community is a beautiful community, and it does look like a high-end hotel. Just reminding our families is that we can provide a lot of care. So it's really just coming in. Yes, just coming in and talking to us, placing the initial phone call and letting us know that you need the help, and we will guide you every step of the way. So looking forward to more families coming through. Thank you, Moti.
Thank you, and see you soon on the next podcast.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you very much. All right, thanks. And that concludes our podcast with Monica Westphal. Thank you very much.